The Court of Protection is there to make decisions on behalf of any individual in respect of either their financial affairs or welfare matters when they can't take those decisions themselves. Basically what we're saying is that they lack capacity, and that lack of capacity can be the result of an accident, medical negligence, or even just plain old age and the onset of dementia and similar illnesses like that. What the court does is appoint an individual known as a deputy by way of a court order to take decisions on that person's behalf. Now typically these people are quite vulnerable, and hence you have the name Court of Protection. Its role is to protect. It's not a very well-known court, but is becoming more and more well-known. There's been a lot of publicity recently, and with the ageing population it's likely that more and more of us will come across it during our lifetime.
And what's your role in that?
Well, I'm an associate solicitor and head up the Court of Protection team at Kingsley Napley. I've specialised in this work for over 13 years now, and I specialise in financial matters only. I typically act either as a professional deputy on behalf of somebody that's lost capacity, or I advise a family member or friend who are going to act as a lay deputy.
So do most people have a professional deputy?
Not necessarily. It largely depends on the circumstances of the individual involved. Most of my clients have suffered catastrophic injuries, either as a result of an accident or medical negligence, and have been awarded very large sums of compensation as a result. Their affairs are therefore necessarily complex, and it is usually appropriate in those circumstances for a professional to be appointed. The role of deputy is quite onerous, and so it is a difficult decision to take for a family member or friend to take on that responsibility, but if somebody's affairs are not too complicated, then it's not uncommon for them to act.
So what's your approach as a professional deputy?
As a deputy, I'm appointed by a court order, and that gives me a clear set of rules and powers that I can work to. It's not just a legal role, there's a lot more involved being a deputy, and you have a very personal relationship with your client. So if I'm to do my job well, I need to know my client and also know their family and friends. If I make a decision on an individual's behalf, then I have to be certain that what I'm doing is in their best interests. In doing so, I obviously therefore need to talk to my client and talk to their family. I also have to bear in mind that I'm not dealing with my own money, and therefore I can't impose my views or my values. And when deciding best interests, I have to take into account the individual concerned and what their wishes might be, and what they might have been before they had their accident or injury.
Will I be relinquishing all areas of responsibility of my financial affairs if I appoint a deputy?
Not necessarily. The Mental Capacity Act, which is the main piece of law that governs the work of the Court of Protection, is an empowering piece of legislation. One of its primary aims is to ensure that people are able to make their own decisions whenever possible, and even if a deputy is appointed, they're encouraged to assist their client to make as many decisions as they can. It's not my job as a deputy to make decisions on what food you're going to have that evening, what clothes you buy, or where you go on holiday. Obviously my job is to make sure the money is available to do that, but at the end of the day, we all make our own decisions about routine matters without the involvement of the professional.
Do I have a choice as to whether I involve the Court of Protection?
The Court of Protection only becomes involved when there is clear evidence that somebody lacks capacity to make their own decisions. That's usually by way of a medical report from a doctor. Unfortunately, if the evidence is clear, then we have no option other than to go to the Court of Protection. However, this doesn't stop the rest of us from planning for our future, and we can all make something known as a lasting power of attorney. This is very similar, but allows us to choose who we would want to manage our financial affairs or our welfare matters if at some point in the future we subsequently lost capacity.